Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tannas Sarva Prachodayat. I offer my humble salutations at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Respected elders, brothers and sisters of Sai family, it's a great honor and good fortune and also a blessing from Swami that I've got this opportunity to speak to all of you and share with you my experiences with Swami. Swami says, miracles are my visiting cards. Now, we all know what a visiting card is. A visiting card is one through which a person introduces himself or herself to someone. And miracles, you are very familiar. We have seen a lot of miracles with Swami. We all have experienced sometime or the other. Today, I wish to share with all of you some of the visiting cards that our family has received from Swami. My father, my mother, my brother, my two sisters, and myself, we have each one in a different way received a visiting card from him. Let me take you back to 1962. Swami visited Perambur, a locality in Chennai, where a Sai center was to be inaugurated, a prayer hall was to be inaugurated. Our house was just opposite that center. It was as if Swami had literally come to a doorstep and given his visiting card, come visit me. Unfortunately for us, we did not utilize that opportunity. None of us could go there. When my father realized that somebody had come, a young Swami had come, he rushed there only to realize that Swami had already left the venue half an hour earlier. My father was very disappointed. My father had a great passion to visit temples, saints, sages, ashrams. He was mad after spirituality. So he felt very disappointed that he couldn't have darshan of that Sai Baba. That's how he found out by going there. To satisfy himself, he bought a picture of Swami. He put it on the wall. And that is how Swami entered our home. But it took another 11 years for Swami to enter our lives. This was 1962. My father had a transferable job, so he used to be transferred to various places. 11 years later, in 1973, we landed in Shillong. My brother did not accompany us. He was already married and settled in Tamil Nadu. My sisters and myself accompanied our parents. We were in Shillong. Now, Shillong is a hill station. It's a very cold place, cold throughout the year. The winters are particularly severe, though it doesn't snow, but it's quite cold. And to us, from the deep south, it was a little difficult to bear the cold. The next year, little after January, my father developed rheumatism, and that led to a partial paralysis. He was bedridden for more than 2 months. During that period, after reaching Shillong, we found a samiti through a mutual friend. We started attending samiti, started attending bhajans, and taking part in various seva activities. And there we came close to the convener of the samiti, Dr. Barwa. I wish I could devote time to speak so much about himself. A separate hour is required to speak about what a noble soul he was, an ideal Sai devotee. But we could approach him and we could ask him to treat my father. Dr. Barwa was an extremely busy man. He was not only the convener of the Samiti in Shillong, he was also the state president of all the 7 northeastern states. He was also the personal physician of the governor of Meghalaya, the state in which Shillong is. He was also practicing, taking care of his medical practice. With all these responsibilities, he never failed to attend a single festival in Prashanthi every year. That was that man. But yet, in all his nobility, he used to visit my father at our home at least once a week and treat him. The treatment went on for 2 years. There was not much improvement. My father was bedridden. He could not move his limbs. He had pain in all his joints. In one of his visits towards the end of 2 months, Dr. Barua came beaming with joy to tell us that Sri Kasturi will be visiting Shillong. He'll be visiting our Samiti. And from there, he wanted to visit a Tamil home where he wanted to narrate or recite a poem that he has written in Tamil called Sai Bhagavatam. Now, just to digress a little, Sri Kasturi, before the 75th birthday celebrations, that is before 1975, before he had written, few years before that, he had written a poem in English. It's titled The Annunciation. This poem describes how Swami declared his avatarhood in the year 1940. The poem describes all the events surrounding that. Later, he translated, Kasturiji translated that English poem written by him. He himself translated into all the South Indian languages. We were told that he wanted to recite the Tamil version of the Sai Bhagavatam in our home. We happened to be the only Tamil family in the Samiti at the time. So we were very overjoyed. We started thinking about the preparations. But only my father, in spite of his happiness and joy, he was also disappointed because he felt that he'll be bedridden, he will not be move around, receive the guests, and participate in the preparations. So that was his agony. He really felt it very much. Well, Shivratri came. Our dear Dr. Barua visited Prashanthi Nilayam, came back and came to our house. He was carrying a packet of vibhuti. Swami had given him, created vibhuti and given him, which he had not used for himself or his family. He brought it to give it to my father. He himself applied on father's forehead and rubbed all over father's body, particularly the right side, which was partially paralyzed. 2 days later, 48 hours later, was a visit of Sri Kasturi. The next day, father's health showed a dramatic improvement. He started moving his limbs. By afternoon, he could move. By evening, you could have normal dinner. Next morning, to everyone's amazement and shock, father went to the entrance to receive Sri Kasturi. He bustled around, making all arrangements, taking care of the guests. About 100 plus people were assembled in our house. The Sai Bhagavatam was beautifully inaugurated. In fact, I remember our father pleading with Kasturi ji that he would like to do namaskar to him. Kasturi ji demonstrated. He said, no, no, no. But he had learned that devotees looked at him as almost as good as Swami. So he had found out a device to avoid that. He would just stand with his folded arms like this, eyes closed, when anyone would offer namaskar. He has said that anyone who offers a namaskar would automatically transfer it to Swami, not accept it. So he stood there. It was a grand sight to see father who couldn't grasp a glass of water the previous day. He couldn't fold his fingers like this. He could bend down in front of Kasturiji and touch his feet. That is how I would say my father received his visiting card. Swami blessed him. From that time, his devotion for Swami became very intense. He determined that one day, before his retirement, he should move to Prashanthi Nilayam and spend all his retired life, all the remaining years of his life in Prashanthi Nilayam. And if it was not possible, some place closest to Prashanthi Nilayam, which was Bangalore, so that he could visit both Brindavan and Prashanthi Nilayam. That was his dream. He also decided, he just literally told me, you are going to join Swami's college. Well, I said, okay, if you say that, let that be, let it be as it is. That was my father's visiting card, and it was in 1974. The next year came 1975. In the calendar of Sai family, it was a very important year. It was the year of 50th birthday of Bhagwan. From the Samiti's side, 12 young men and women were selected to take part in a rally that was going to be held at that time. My sister also was fortunate to be selected for that rally. We are all very happy. My parents were definitely very happy that my sister was getting this chance. That was to be her visiting card to Swami, from Swami. But then, being parents, they were also worried. My sister being hardly 15 years old at the time, they were little apprehensive about sending a young girl to a far off unknown place. Though no doubt they are going to Swami, but yet, as parents, they could not prevent the thought. They were in a dilemma. The day approached when they had to give their approval. My sister had to fill up the form and give her agreement. The next day, it was the next day. The previous day, to my mother's surprise, after she had performed the morning worship, she went to the altar room to pick up something. She just glanced at the ash that falls from the incense stick. Normally, it will be a long streak, continuous or broken pieces scattered here and there. But the day she saw a long straight line with a tick mark, like a tick mark, with a hook at one end, like a tick mark, and it was green in color. She has never seen like that. Later, we have lit agarbatti of the same brand, what we have had, the rest of the sticks. We never saw such a thing happening. It was a beautiful sign from Swami, my sister's visiting card. She happily went to Prashanthi Nilayam on all her behalves. She enjoyed beautiful 15-day trip during the 50th birthday. And from that time, she has been an ardent devotee of Bhagwan. That's how Swami pulled her. 76 came. We were, it was time for the next transfer for father. He had a choice of, since he was nearing retirement, he had a choice of posting. That means he could choose his place of posting. Promptly, obviously, he selected Bangalore for posting. So in November 1976, we landed in Bangalore. We took residence in a place which was about 15 kilometers from Brindavan. And thus began another glorious phase in my father's life, darshans in Brindavan. In those days, literally 8 months in a year, Swami used to spend in Brindavan. Every day almost, my father would catch the earliest bus, rush to Brindavan, have darshan, and come back, go beyond our house to his office. He did that every day. We all, the rest of us, we all could join whenever we could. Definitely on Sundays, we used to go. And whenever Thursday, because on Thursdays and Sundays, there used to be Akhand Bhajan, bhajans from morning 9 till 4. But my father wanted to have darshan every day. That was his passion. In those days, there's nothing like the lines, darshan lines or tokens like we have now, or when Swami was there, where we had to depend on luck and on our fate to get token number 1 or 2. And if we don't get that, we receive the curses of all those behind us. In those days, it was a mad rush. First come, first get a seat. My father's ambition was to get some nice vantage seat, the front line, so that he could grab a namaskar, get a namaskar when Swami passes by. It was also our fortune, once in a while, we used to get namaskar, pad namaskar. And that is where my visiting card, my moment comes in, my visiting card. I used to get once in a while the front line. Once in a while, sitting in second or third line, you could stretch out, lean forward, and manage to get a namaskar. One of the days, I was seated in the second line. Swami came right in front of me, and there he was talking to someone. He created vibhutis for someone. He spent quite some time. He was taking letters. He was taking garlands. He used to receive garlands in those days. He was receiving garlands. He spent quite some time. I was hesitating. I didn't want to bend forward. I felt that unless I'm in the front, I should not go forward. But finally, my desire overcome my scruples or my principles. Suddenly, in an impulse, I leaned forward, literally dashed down to touch Swami's feet. Just precisely at that moment, Swami just moved away. Abruptly moved away. I landed awkwardly on my face, on my forehead. Sand stuck all over my face. I got up offended. As a youth, 16 years old, my blood maybe got heated up. What is this? And I felt all others were looking at me, maybe laughing at me. That was a thought. I then and there I decided I will not do namaskar till Swami explicitly tells me to do namaskar. And lo and behold, after that, I used to get front line frequently, almost every visit to Brindavan. And there he'll pass by me. He'll come and pass by, brushing his robe, brushing past me, his leg touching my knees. Or he'll come and stop before me, look at me, smile, and spend seconds, so many seconds in front of me. But I sat tight. I sat with my determination, with arms folded, looking at him, not doing namaskar. I said, you have to tell me to do namaskar. A little later, Dr. Barwa, whom I mentioned earlier, he had come on a visit to Bangalore to have darshan with his family. There was going to be a marriage in his family. So he had come and stayed in our house. It was a big group, a marriage group. Swami had told them to come for interview on a particular day. They had arrived in Bangalore the previous day. The next day, they had gone in darshan. Swami had told them when to come for the interview. They happened to mention, Swami asked them where you are staying. They happened to mention about us, about my father and family. And he asked, somehow it came to him to ask Swami's permission to call us also. Swami graciously agreed that we could also come for interview. Now, on the designated day, we all landed there in Brindavan. We were all into the front hall. It was a vestibule, the old Brindavan. They were all there. On the gent side, I was the only one. My father could not come because of some commitment. Only I could come from the gent side. With 7 or 8 gents were there, men were there. I was the only man from our family. When Swami came down, came to our group, he came straight to me. He gave a big smile. I still remember we were face to face. He just stood hardly a few inches away from me, eye to eye. We were looking. He said, Karo Namaskar. He said. And that's how he broke my resolve. He took my whatever I might say, my resolve or my obstination or my ahankar, whatever it is, he broke it with a smile. And that was, I would consider that as my first visiting card. I was really thrilled after that. A few months, that was sometime in March or April. In that June, that is June 1977, I joined the erstwhile Brindavan College called as Sri Sathya Sai Arts, Science and Commerce College, affiliated to Bangalore University. I joined for my BSc degree. About a week after I joined the college, Swami was not in Brindavan at that time, he was in Puttaparthi. About a week later, he came to Brindavan. And what an experience it was. One fine day, we were seated in the room. It was in the afternoon, lunchtime. Suddenly from some corner screamed, Swami! It was a scream. And that was joined by other screams, Swami, Swami, Swami. The shouts, yells started from all corners of the hostel. Tables are being scraped, chairs are being scraped, tables are being closed, pushed, doors are banging, slamming. There was a mad rush. I asked my room leader, what happened? He said, don't ask, run. So I ran behind him, ran behind my room leader. There were 100, 300 boys running. I ran behind them. They all ran to Mandir. The gates were open, silver gates were open. We all assembled, panting. And then Swami's car came. Swami's car came, slowly gliding. The car went away and Swami stood there looking at all the excited faces, the panting, with panting, and slowly looked at everyone and went away. That was my first experience as a student. Earlier, when we had come to Bangalore in November, we all had darshan during Swami's birthday in 1976 and later during Shivratri in 1977. But as a student, this was my first darshan, in close quarters. A few days later, daily when Swami used to come for darshan, he'll pass by the students. We'll all be standing inside the mandir along the cement pathway that leads to his mandir. One of my friends, my classmates, he had fruits in his hand. When Swami came near, he offered it to Swami. Swami asked, "What is this?" Swami, "Fruits from our home, from our garden." Immediately, Swami asked someone to keep it inside. Immediately, Swami is so happy, he created a locket and gave it to him. I was standing right next to him. I was impressed. I said, "Well, I also should do something like that." So he gave fruits. He got a locket. So next, when I met my mother next, she had come for darshan. I told mother, "So look, you must make something for Swami and get." I had no idea what Swami will like. She had no idea what Swami will like. After a few days, she came with a tray closed with a cloth. She opened it and showed coconut burfis, sweets. That's a form of sweet. Coconut burfis. I was aghast. This much I knew about Swami, that Swami had never eaten any milk or products right from childhood. Definitely not sweets. Swami was not eating. So I told, "Why did you make the sweet? You could have made something else." "Swami will not take sweets." She said, "Keep quiet. I know Swami will take. You just take it." Now, how can one countermand a mother? So quietly I took it. I went inside. I stood in a corner. I was afraid. Swami will scold me. So I didn't want to be seen scolded. So I stood carefully in a corner. Swami came for darshan. The moment he saw me, in a very gentle but refusing way, he said, "Arey, re, I don't eat sweets," he said. It was very kind, but it was a refusal. Immediately, my face must have fallen. I don't think I would have controlled my emotion at that moment, because Swami saw my face. He came near, again lovingly. He himself removed the cloth, and then with his right forefinger, he just swiped on one of the sweets. A few grains stuck to his finger. He just brushed it on his lips, and said, "Chalu, that's enough," he said, and went away. What a way to respect others' feelings. Only Swami can do that. There's a song in Hindi which goes like this: "Prabal prem ke pale palkar, Prabhu ko niyam badalte dekha." It means, out of sheer love, great love for his devotees, God breaks his own rules, the rules made by himself. And that's what he seems to have done. That was another visiting card for me. How Swami will respect and respond to your feelings. The years passed, 3 years came to an end quite soon. After BSc, there was no MSc in Sathya Sai College. But then Swami had graciously, in those years, Swami used to select students from the outgoing batch who used to pray to him or himself on his phone. He used to select and then allow them to stay in the hostel to attend classes in Bangalore University. We would stay in the hostel, travel every day up and down to Bangalore University, which was minimum of, there were two centers. One was about 20 kilometers, other one was 24 kilometers away. We started classes. Swami used to select what course we would take, MSc, MA, MCom, or if it was science, we would even say the subject, MSc Chemistry, MSc Physics. In my batch, Swami had selected about 10 boys whom he had permitted to continue to stay in the hostel and go for this. When my turn came, I had by then received admission for statistics. I'd applied also for MSc Statistics. So I did not know what to do. What will I do with MSc Statistics? Physics, Chemistry, Mathematics has an avenue for teaching here. But what will I do with statistics? So I wrote a letter to Swami. What should I do? He came and said, "Well, statistics is very good. Do MSc Statistics. You'll get a very good job. You become a big officer. You'll earn a lot of money. You can have a big house." And in a very tempting, very sing-song way, he was telling in a sing-song way. I immediately interrupted him. I said, "No, Swami, I don't want to go." He paused. In a very grave manner, he said, "If you want to listen to Swami, take mathematics." I had not yet got application for that. I got the admission for that. But it came. I had no doubt about getting in mathematics anyway, because mathematics has been my love right from my first standard. I've been always very good in mathematics. And Swami, only as God, only He knew what was in my heart and what I was capable of. So I joined for MSc Mathematics. Again, 2 years passed. The exams got over. The results were awaited. it would take 2 to 3 months for the results to come for for MSc Mathematics, or generally postgraduate results will take a little time because it involved double evaluation. It had to be sent to examiners, and then the differences had to be reconciled. It was a 3-month process. I was waiting for that result. Meantime, my father was nearing his retirement. He was hoping that I'll get appointed as a lecturer, and with my, he expected me to use my influence and ask Swami to get a job for him in the institute, because by then the institute had started. Sri Sathya Sai Institute had started, including Prashanthi campus and Anantapur campus. Brindavan campus joined 1 year later. So here I was waiting, but Swami not telling anything. As I was expecting to receive the word from Swami that I am appointed as lecturer, waiting to receive the result, I rather received a thunderbolt from Swami. One day he called me and told me, you go and stay with your parents. Leave the hostel, stay with your parents. I was grief-stricken, was horrified for two reasons. Number one reason, to leave this hostel and go. Swami is literally asking, I was hoping that I would stay here for my lifetime. And here he is asking me to leave with no guarantee that I would come back. He didn't say anything about that. The second reason was like this. When I joined the college, I had told that Swami, my father wanted to come for darshan every day. But that was not possible, staying 15 kilometers away from Brindavan. So one fine day, during my first year itself, without my knowledge, he found a house in Kadgodi, right in Kadgodi, literally behind the hostel, almost behind the hostel. He shifted there, and one day he told me, I've come here we have all come to Kadgodi. I was totally shocked. My reaction was that, as it is, I'm being a Bangalore student, it was Swami's grace that I got hostel admission, because only students staying at a far off place used to get hostel admission. It was Swami's grace. Few of the boys from Bangalore had got hostel accommodation. I also had got. Now they are in Kadgudi, just behind. And if Swami sees my father every day in the morning, he will know that my father is in Kadgudi. And he'll ask me, why are you here? So with that fear in mind, I created that, as Swami says, mentally created fear. I rushed to the warden. I said, sir, this is a situation. Sir, what's your problem? He said, see, please ask Swami whether I can stay in the hostel. He said, why do you want to raise the issue? There's no issue here. So no, sir, if Swami comes to know, please ask. So just to satisfy, or just to get me off his back, he went and asked Swami. Swami, this boy wants to know like this. And dear devotees, how Swami responded. This is what Swami is. He always thinks about others. He said, ask him, it is not important whether it's all right that he can stay in the hostel or not. Ask him to find out from his parents whether they are okay, whether it is all right for them, they are comfortable with his son staying in the hostel and they being so close. I was ready with that answer. My parents anticipated that. I said, so they would have no objection. Then Swami said, then we have no objection. Let him stay. So yeah, that time, of course, I was just happy. But only as I grew later, became more mature, I could sense, I could understand and appreciate what Swami was, how he is, the others' feelings are more important than his own, what he wants. Others' feelings are more important for him. So now, coming to the second point, I was horrified for two reasons. One is that I would have to leave the hostel. Second one, my parents are staying here so close. They didn't want me to stay there. In fact, at the end of my first year, I'm again going back to my first year. At the end of the first year, Swami was staying in the hostel, but the hostel mess had closed down. There were many students and teachers who were staying in the hostel, but they used to go to the Gokulam canteen. At the time it was not Gokulam, but there's a canteen. We used to go there and have our food. I wondered what I should do. I thought parents are there in Kadagodi. Let me go there, have with them. One day, first day I went there, they're very happy for me to come. Second day I went, I saw my mother was not so cheerful. And the third day I went, she blurted out. She said, "Why are you coming every day?" Can you believe a mother asking like that? She said, "Why are you getting attached?" I was totally mortified. So what have I done? And after that, that vacation or any vacation, I never went home. Except when Swami was not in Brindavan. If he was in Brindavan, I never went there. This was a mental status. It took me many years to understand and appreciate my mother's extreme sense of renunciation. She could conquer her mother's love so that her son can be with Swami. So now that was the second reason. She didn't want me to come for lunch daily. And here I'm going to stay with them. I didn't know what a reaction would be. But anyway, what I did, I pleaded with Swami. Swami, please, I don't want to go. It took more than 5 minutes. Swami persuaded me, cajoled me, consoled me, compelled me in a very, very loving way. It took him more than 5 minutes. I resisted. No, he didn't leave. I remember now he spoke in Tamil, my mother tongue, in Telugu, in Hindi, and in English. In 4 languages, he tried to convince me. Finally, at one stage, I realized that Swami wants me to go. I just surrendered, I yielded. Then he was so happy and relieved. He said, "Take Namaskar." I took Namaskar. That day, Swami was leaving for Brindavan from Parthi. He had just called me at that time to tell me this. Next day, I took the bus, came with. I thought Swami is not sending me permanently, so I took only part of my luggage from the hostel. I reached my parents' home in Kadugudi. I expected shock. I expected blastings, scoldings. See, you're lost, Swami. You must have committed some sin. You won't have behaved properly. All such things I was ready for. I was not ready for one thing. They were so happy. Both embraced me. And you know how a mother shows her love. Delicacies day and night, every day, morning and evening. It went on and on like that. They never showed any resentment or unhappiness. Whether Swami was in Brindavan during that period or not, I stayed there. He also asked me to join the college as lecturer. I joined as a lecturer, but staying with my parents in Kadugudi. 1 year passed, more than a year later. One day, I was very curious. I used to keep thinking why they never angry or upset that I came and stayed with them. Why they are okay with my staying with them. So one day I asked my mother, "See, why are you like this? Why didn't you?" You know what she told me? Earlier years, when I was in the hostel for 5 years, during that period, on many occasions, my father often used to succumb to some feelings, to emotions, and tell my mother, used to sit with mother and say, "See, one son is in Tamil Nadu. Tiruvannamalai is where my brother was. Tiruvannamalai, Ramana Maharshi's place. He settled that he's with his family. We can't go and stay with him because we want Swami. The other son, we are given to Swami. He is with Swami. Who will take care of us?" You know, these feelings sometimes overwhelm us. In spite of knowing everything, sometimes it happens to all of us. We yield to these feelings. And my mother told, at all those times, I was the one who consoled him. I told him, "Keep quiet, don't talk like that. He is with Swami, Swami will take care of us." But on that one day, the day before, the day before, Swami was telling me to go. She said, I also broke down. We leaned on each other's shoulders and cried for hours. And that was the day. The next day, he called me and told me, "Go home, stay with your parents." So after that, I was also reconciled. I accepted that I was not punished by being sent. It was to fulfill my parents' wishes that Swami sent me home. Now, I was working in the college. My father retired. He waited for Swami to call him. He used to tell me, "So look, I thought you'll be in the hostel and you will get me a job telling Swami. Now you are with me. We both are here outside. When will I get a job with Swami?" And we used to have a lot of clashes often. One day, this clash became very bitter. We exchanged a lot of words. He became very upset with me. He said, you stay here, what do you want? He told my mother, you want to stay with your son, stay. I'm going to Prashanthi Nilayam. I'll pray to Swami for a job there. I'm not coming from there. He packed all his luggage. Next morning, he left the house with all his luggage. He reached Prashanthi Nilayam. Later we came to know, he reached Prashanthi Nilayam by 3:45 p.m. He went to, with all his luggage, he went to the chairman of Prashanthi Nilayam. That time it was Sri Kutumbarao. He formally introduced himself. Sir, my name is Ramnathan. I am accounts officer, retired. I want to serve Swami. Immediately, Kutumbarao Garu told him, Mr. Ramnathan, go rush to Mandir right now. Leave your luggage here. He said, what happened? Don't talk. Swami has, last 15 days, Swami has been announcing. Swami has told that retired people are wanted to come and serve in Prashanthi Nilayam. For last 15 days, it has been announced in the Mandir. Today is the deadline. At 4 o'clock, Swami is meeting all those who have volunteered. They are waiting there, ladies and gents. They are waiting in the Prashanthi Bhajan Hall. My father rushed there. He was late. Swami was about to come. The door was about to open. Because he was late and because the hall was full, the back doors were closed, he was rushed to the front. The last man to enter, but the first man to be met by Bhagwan. He sat right in the front. Swami came right inside. He knelt up. He told us, he knelt up to tell Swami, Swami, I'm Ramnathan. He was about to start. Swami said, I know you, Ramnathan, he said. And Swami continued, said, I know your son, Subramanian, lecturer in Brindavan College. Take namaskar. He took namaskar. And in that meeting, Swami told the people who are assembled there, see, you all can work here honorably in the institute or hospital or any other institutions. You'll be given accommodation after the 50th birthday. This was August 1985. So after the birthday is over, because there is a requirement for accommodation now, after birthday, you'll be given accommodation. So he got accommodation, he got a flat in West Prashanthi. My mother also joined him. And shortly later, that's another story. I don't want to get into that now. How I got back into the hostel. About 2 years, I stayed alone in Kadagodi. But after that, in a dramatic manner, I could get back into the hostel, in Brindavan hostel, where I'm staying from that time. Thus now began my father's final phase of his life, a glorious period of 13 years, 12 years, from 1985 to 1997. Every morning when Swami was in Prashanthi Nilayam, people used to rush in the morning, assemble outside at the entrance to East Prashanthi. And when the Prashanthi Nilayam, the darshan area was totally different that time. There was no hall, there was sands. Swami used to walk on the sand. It's totally a different layout. But what was remarkable was, at the designated moment, there was no lines and all that. At the designated moment, there's a rush of young and old. In fact, the elders who were working in the ashram in various departments, they were faster than the youngsters, the men and the boys. They were faster. It was a grand sight to see. My father was one of them, seeing them rushing to catch their vantage seat. 12 years my father spent there. During those 12 years, staying with Bhagwan, not missing a single darshan, he brought many of his relatives, his many nieces, his nephews, their children. He was responsible for many of them to get married. He would take, his modus operandi was this. Someone would approach him and tell him, uncle, or I want to get married. Okay, you read this book, Stotram book. I'll get it blessed for you. He'll sit with the book in his place. Swami will come. Whenever Swami saw a book in his hand, I've seen it with my own eyes. Swami will straight like an arrow go to him, open the book and see, touch his head, bless him, and bless the book. And you'll write there, blessed by Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba on this day, and get presented to so and so. He'll write and give. More than a dozen he has given like that. People have had children, or children with a hole in the heart. They had become better. And somebody who was weak in the heart, his niece had 3 healthy children. There's so many such experiences. Through him, many in our family received the visiting cards. One of them is my own brother. He received his visiting card in a very nice manner a little later, but he was getting interested. He was started accepting Swami. He was getting more and more devoted to Bhagwan. But there was a restlessness within him that what he is doing is not enough. That merely coming to Puttaparthi for darshan and for functions, he used to come 5-6 times a year. He used to have bhajans at home. His wife was a good singer. But he felt that was not enough. Something more should be done. But he did not know what to do, how to go about it. Years passed, 12 years passed. It was 1995. 10 years passed, 1995. Thus, my brother is yet to receive his visiting card. My mother yet to receive, but they received. But now let me talk about my sister here, my second sister. My second sister was, I can say, a phenomenon. She was born with a medical condition. When the baby came out, the umbilical cord was twisted tight around her neck. In fact, that delayed the labor by more than half an hour. When the baby came out, she was bluish in color. The doctor struggled to revive her, and he cautioned us that there's likely to be brain damage. So it happened, though physically she grew, but her mental age did not exceed 5. She was childlike. I won't say childish. She was childlike. She had the rudiments of English and Tamil, but beyond that she could not reach. She was very, very innocent in worldly matters. But there was one thing great in her, something that was inborn in her, that was devotion to God. Whatever was given to her, if my father says, chant the stotram, she will stumble through the words and chant it. If she was asked to write in the notebook Om Sai Ram 1 page a day, she will write. If my mother calls her for lunch, she said, why are you troubling me? I have not finished this 1 page. Don't disturb me. That was a dedication. She was a great asset to her family. She had such a sweet angelic face. Anyone who saw her used to be totally captivated by her beauty and her goodness. She was like an angel only in her house. In fact, anyone who was to meet her first time, and when they come back, particularly Dr. Barwa was to visit us, Uma, where is Uma? He'll come. He'll first ask for her. They'll have their own conversation with each other. Only then he'll turn to others, Dr. Barwa. That's how she was. It was the year 1995. All through these years, she lived for 45 years. She was born in 50. All through her 45 years, she suffered from some disease or the other. I cannot name them, list them. But in the last 15 years of her life, she developed fits after a lot of treatment, allopathic, Ayurvedic, homeopathic treatment, nothing worked. Finally, my parents gave up. But not once Swami referred to her, to me or to my parents about her. Swami had seen in Darshan area my first sister getting fits, her hands and legs thrashing about, her face getting distorted, foaming in the mouth. The whole Swami, there are occasions when Swami stood at the edge of the portico, watched the entire thing for a few minutes. My mother expected something from Swami, but he stood there and watched the entire thing. He didn't say anything. In February 95, she passed away after great suffering, which lasted for 24 hours. She died. And now, how do I convey that to Swami? We wanted to convey that to Swami. We wanted consolation from Swami. 8 days later, after this, the day she passed away, actually paradoxically, that was the day I was going to Prashanthi Nilayam to pick up my parents and my sister and leave for Thiruvannamalai for my brother's first daughter's marriage. We had already informed Swami about this marriage. He had blessed us, he had blessed the invitation. 8 days later, the day we were supposed to leave, 8 days later, the marriage was there. I had applied leave for 8 days. But just before I was leaving Brindavan, I got the message that my sister passed away. So I went not to pick them up, but to receive my sister's body, to see my sister's body. Now, what do I do? I went and sat for darshan. And Swami came near me. He saw me. Because generally, any teacher coming from Brindavan, Swami would immediately come and ask, though he would know in advance before why we are coming for any official purpose, but he'll still come and ask, why are you here? And the next question used to be, when are you going? So he asked me what happened. I said, Swami, my sister passed away. He appeared very stricken. He said, oh, he was very sympathetic. Then he told me, go get the cremation done. For any resident of Prashanthi Nilayam, the ashram, if a resident, when he passes away, the ashram arranges for all the cremation. It's an entire responsibility. So I finished all the required things and came back and sat for darshan. And now my brothers, and before I came for darshan, we had a meeting at home. What to do about the marriage? Because, you know, the tradition, and we were very traditional. Any such event means cancellation of the marriage. We cannot hide it. We didn't want to do that. That's one way people do that. They hide it, keep quiet, let the marriage pass. There's a proverb, isn't it? We can tell 1,000 lies for a good thing, for a marriage. We thought Swami is here. They told me, ask Swami about the marriage. I said, how do I ask like that straight away about marriage? Anyway, I went and sat. Swami came straight to me. He said, asked, everything's over? I said, yes. Then I built up courage. Swami, we want to speak to you. Man, I didn't know how to frame the words. Just came out like that. After a lot of planning, this is what came out. Swami, we want to speak to you. He said, I also want to speak to all of you. I never expected that response. I don't know. I expected I was ready for different responses from Swami and not for this. I said, okay, let me. Then I thought for a moment quickly. I said, Swami, we want to speak to you about marriage. He said, I also want to talk to you about marriage. I said, wow. So Swami is aware of this problem. He's showing his awareness. But he said, not today. The death has occurred today. For 3 days, it is not proper. I'll call you after 3 days. So we sat for 3 days. We sat and talked about Swami, talked about her. Not one tear in our eyes. Because Swami was taking care. And he's going to speak to us. On the 4th day, he called us. He called us for the interview. And then we were called into the inner room. There were other families also. He met each family one by one. Then he called us into the inner room. He sat down. We all sat down. Then Swami asked, as if, you know, we had called him and he did not know what to speak. Tell, what do you want? He asked, as if he was not sure what to say. My brother, he was expecting Swami will just jump into the thing and tell about the marriage. He was in a little impatient tone. He asked Swami, about the marriage, Swami. Marriage? Huh? Whose marriage? Swami looked puzzled. Whose marriage? My brother was a little more irritated. He said, Swami, my daughter's marriage, Swami. He slightly raises his voice. And then Swami said, no, I don't want to talk about that marriage. I have some other marriage in mind. Then he pointed to me with his finger and said, I want to talk about this fellow's marriage. That released the tension in the room. Everyone laughed, and I was also relieved. He looked at everyone, then he said, yes, I'm going to perform his marriage, he said. Then looked at me, he waved his arm, created a ring, and said, today engagement. That was the month of February. Today engagement, in June, marriage. I'll perform the marriage and put the ring in my hand. A small interlude, he put the ring on in my right hand. It didn't go in. He pushed it, didn't go. Array, he said, put it in the left hand, it went in. And he said, no, not left hand. It can't be left hand. He removed it, put it in the right hand, it went in. Then after that, he spoke to my brother, sister-in-law, brother-in-law. He spoke to everyone. Then he came to the point. Literally, said, now, he became serious. We knew that we had to raise the issue of marriage. My brother asked Swami, what to do about the marriage? And you know what Swami said? He said, go ahead with the marriage. He said. My brother asked, Swami, what if they come to know, they ask, what if they come to know about the death? Don't tell them, he said. But Swami, they will know because 6 months earlier, the engagement was held. For that, my parents had gone with the daughter, my sister, and she captivated everybody in that family. that family. They were so happy seeing her. In fact, they made one more trip again during the next 6 months. Every time they used to keep asking my brother on any occasion about that girl. She had captivated everyone. So now they are bound to ask in the marriage where that girl is. Then Swami said, don't tell lies. Tell the truth. If they ask you about the girl, tell them what happened. If they don't ask on your own, you don't tell. You won't believe me. Not one person. About 15 of those people, relatives, knew her personally. Not one of them asked during those 72 hours of pre-marriage functions and the marriage day. The marriage got over. The evening, it was a Saturday. Sunday morning, my brother and myself, we went to the groom's relatives, the elder brothers and the sisters who organized the marriage. We went and asked them how you felt about the marriage. Are you happy? What's your opinion? They told us they're very nice people, very good people. They gave a very nice answer. They said 90% we are happy, but 10% things went wrong. And during the marriage time, there were little upsetting moments, but it was got away. It never reached any serious stage. They just referred to it in a very gracious manner. And my brother told them, you know why the 10% happened? Then he told about my sister's passing away. They were shocked, they were aghast. What? Oh my God. They said, we did not think about her. We didn't remember. Not one of them remembered that girl. And now it came bursting, rushing out of their mind. They were so amazed how that memory was hidden from their minds. That was a turning point in their lives. This incident was a visiting card for them. They started believing in Swami, accepting Swami. Many of them are actually involved in Sai activities, and they are ardent devotees of Bhagwan. Swami used us to be a visiting card to a bunch of people through that incident. In that interview, my mother also received Bhagwan's grace. She was very heart-stricken. At the heart of her, she knew that this girl was sick and she could not survive. Yet, in the depth of her heart, the mother craved that the child should become normal. She asked Swami, why did she die like this? She asked straight. Swami told her, Amma, don't feel bad, I'm telling you like this. He spoke in Tamil. Don't feel bad. It's better that that girl went away like this, isn't it? What you would have done. It was difficult for you also. It's good. Don't worry. And then Swami made some momentous statements. He said, you all don't know anything about her. He pointed at me. I was right at his feet in front of him. He pointed his hand and said, this fellow has bhakti. This fellow has buddhi, but that girl has bhakti. It is because of her you all have come to me. But for her, you would not have come to me. She brought all of you here. She's a pure soul. She has merged in me. No need. We also had one doubt in our mind. We didn't know how to ask Swami. But finally we put it, what karma should be performed for her? Swami said, no need of any karma for her. She's a pure soul. She has merged in me. You just perform a small ceremony called purification ceremony. Punyavachanam, it's called a purification ceremony. You just perform that, that's enough, he said. So she did not get a visiting card. The only member who didn't get a visiting card, but she did not need one, I feel. She was already with him. He was already with her. Now it was my mother's turn, the last one. After the death of my sister, my father literally lost all his will to live. He refused to eat. He refused to get up. He just lay bedridden. His health declined over the next 2 years. In fact, one of the doctors diagnosed his condition. One of the doctors in Prashanthi Super Hospital said, Dr. Bhatt said, this man has no will to live. Every day morning he used to get up. Why am I still alive? Because he used to tell us, in fact, he had literally planned these events. He used to tell my mother, I also have heard that See, you should not go first. I cannot stay without you. I can't remain anywhere. I should go first. But if I go first, who will take care of this girl? So she should go first, whenever it is. But after she goes, I have to go. And he used to tell my mother, you can stay. Your sons will take care of you. He used to use this phrase, they'll keep you like a queen. They'll treat you like a queen. You'll be there. You can be there. But I can't be there. So in 2 years, he literally willed himself to death. In 97, he passed away. Again, we were very fortunate to receive an interview, a family interview from Bhagwan. My brother and sister and their families were there. I was there. In that interview, my mother asked Bhagwan, Swami had given us accommodation inside Prashanthi Nilayam because father was serving in the institute honorarily. For that, he was given accommodation. My mother was worried what will happen to her. She asked Swami, can I stay on? Swami said, of course. He did not, it's not that he gave permission. He appeared surprised as if why she is asking permission to continue. Yes, you can stay. I will tell the authorities. And later, the authorities sent word for me and told, Swami has told that she can continue staying in that room, in that flat. And in that interview, Swami told my mother, there were everyone in all my relatives, brothers, sisters, everyone. They all thought that now mother is alone, sister is also not there, she's alone. They thought it's natural that I'll be transferred from Brindavan to Prashanthi. I will either stay in the hostel or stay with her and take care of her. They said, if Swami doesn't tell, you better ask. I said, no. My mother said, I will also not ask. I'll only ask about my staying. So she asked Swami whether I can stay here. Swami said, of course you can stay here. And then he said, you do one thing. See, he was planning a future like this. He spoke in that tone. You do like this. You go to your daughter's house, my first sister, stay with her for some time, but it's not appropriate to stay too long in his daughter's house. Stay for some time and come off. Then go to my brother, go to your son's house, stay for some time there. For some time you stay there, come off here, then settle down here. He was talking like this, I'll give you a job. And he said, there is one old lady who cannot walk properly. You escort her for darshan every day. And mother readily agreed. Swami sat, paused like that, and then looked at my mother, looked at her leg, and said, what help you will give? You yourself are limping. It was surprised to us because Swami had not physically seen her walking. She had a stiff knee, right leg had a stiff knee. She used to walk with a limp. Swami half jokingly told her, you yourself are limping, what will you help? You just keep quiet at home, I'll give you some other work. He never gave any work. For 13 years, she stayed out in Prashanthi Nilayam till 2010. Alone. She stayed alone. Alone. Whenever anybody used that word alone with her, she used to get angry, really angry. She did not say for formality's sake, she really meant that I'm not alone. She used to say, why do you say I'm alone? Don't say I'm alone. I'm staying with Swami. Swami is with me. During those 12 years, her health gradually declined. The neighbors helped her with food. There was in the neighboring house. She took care of her needs. Later, she could not even walk. She could not go down for darshan. Still, she was adamant. She did not want me to come. But during those 12 years, I was in a dilemma. Seeing my mother's condition, I thought, did I make a mistake? Was I wrong in accepting this? Should I have asked Swami? Maybe Swami tested me. All these thoughts are going. Should I have told Swami, offered to come to Prashanthi Nilayam, stay with mother? Should I have got married? Am I doing the right thing? All these thoughts were there. But my mother never asked me, never said anything. So this thought that I am not taking care of my mother was uppermost in my mind for 12 long years. In 2010, my mother's health declined badly. During the vacation, she developed a stroke. She developed a brain stroke, and that left her wheelchair bound. She could not stay alone. And with Swami's permission, I brought her to Bangalore. That is a staff quarters adjoining the college, Brindavan campus. I took accommodation there. I stayed with her Literally stayed with her through the day, taking care of her. For 6 years, I took care of her. It was in 2016, January, that she passed away. What was remarkable was, in those 6 years, my wish was fulfilled. I could take care of her for 6 years. My guilt feeling got erased. I really spent a lot of time taking care of her. Not only that, she used to tell everyone, anyone, any acquaintance, or even someone just coming to the house, my brother used to come 4 to 5 times a year. In the initial years when she could travel, she used to spend 3 months in Tiruvannamalai with him, and then 3 months with me. But after 2, 3 years, she could not travel. She settled on here itself. My brother used to come with his wife. Both used to come here and spend a month or two with my mother. He had also retired by then. She used to tell everyone proudly, both my sons are keeping me like a queen, like a Rani, they're keeping me. My father's words got fulfilled. So it was 2016, she passed away peacefully, without hardly any struggle. Though for 4 months, she suffered from kidney failure, she underwent a lot of pain, but it was not visible on her face. On one such occasion, when she was lucid, she assured me, I have no pain. But her health, body declined, and she passed away. Now, with concluding remarks in another 5 minutes or so, I would like to again revisit what I said about this visiting card. I started with a theme, visiting cards to our family. These visiting cards have taken the shape of saving someone's life, or protecting us, or something else, deciding one's career, one's life. In so many ways, these experiences were our miracles, and these experiences as miracles were our visiting cards through which Swami entered our lives and took us to him. Let me look at a visiting card again. A visiting card has a name at the top. Bhagwan's visiting card has a name, Sri Sathya Sai Baba, right? Below that, a visiting card will have the title, the designation. Below that will come his specialities or what he does or where he works, a person's card. In Swami's card, his profession or what he does are listed like this: boon giver, life saver, counselor, protector, and many, many more. He has different visiting cards for different people. He gives not merely one visiting card, often more than one. It happens in real life also. We'll tell someone, hey, you gave that visiting card, I misplaced somewhere, please give one more. You're not noted down. With Bhagwan, most of us need more than visiting card. We forget he is there to protect us. We forget that we have to worship him. We sometimes deny him. He gives us visiting card. Once again, he forces himself into our lives for our own benefit, not for his benefit. For our benefit, he comes repeatedly offering more and more visiting cards. But then, after utilizing all his abilities, all his specialities in the visiting card, we often do not see, we miss out his main title, his profession, his designation. Below his name, in shining letters, which often doesn't catch our eye, is the word liberator. Liberator. He liberates us from the cycle of birth and death. He liberates us from this Maya, from this illusion. All the other specialities below, all the other help that he renders to us are just interludes. They are just via media. For us to understand that, we have to make use of him, utilize the true boon that is going to give us, that of liberation. And that is what I think we all should look at. When we look into this visiting card, look at that and utilize that. And when we do that, we do not have to worry about anything. I strongly believe that we need not worry about our life, about career, or about our problems. I believe that if we accept these visiting cards, then they are the indicators, or they are the signs that Swami knows what to do, what is the right thing to do in our life at the right time. And that is what happened in my life. I experienced it in all these ways, and I saw it happening in the lives of all my family members. With this thought, I would like to repeat that again, that Swami knows what should happen in our life. He knows the right thing to do in our life at the right time. And how does he do it? Through these experiences. Miracles are his visiting cards. Experiences are his visiting cards. With this, I bring this to a close. I offer my pranams to Bhagwan, my gratitude to Swami for giving me this opportunity, to all of you there unseen but hearing, who are paying attention to what I'm saying. I'm so glad that I could share these experiences, and I'll be very grateful if I could be of any benefit through this narration. Sai Ram to everyone.